Hello students, in today's class we are going to discuss the new topic, the contribution of moral thinkers and the philosophers. Now understand that this is also very important for your essay papers, okay? You can quote these examples and these thinkers in the relevant essays. Okay, why this is important for your exam? Because as a bureaucrat, you have to take a very wiseful ethical decision making. Okay, and understand no one single ethical theory is complete, right? They will give you a relativistic standpoint, but in context of the situation you have to take the decision making. Okay, so let's start. The first one over here, I have divided it into Indian moral thinkers. I think that is it. This much must be enough to quote in your or supplement in your answers. Okay, you can quote them also in your case studies. We will see it how. So Chanakya has been one of the most important statesmen in our Indian history, right? We had seen that how in his Arthashastra he has written about the importance, okay, he has written about the importance of economy for the state, right? He has been a pragmatist, that means a real politic. He is the one who considered the consequences. He went on a consequential approach over here. Anything he judged on the basis of pragmatism. If today I am taking this decision making, what is going to be the far sighted consequence or the result on the empire? Okay? He always believed that there should be long-term welfare of the state. His moral principles were based on the welfare development of the state. Is it clear? Now, he has also given the doctrine of Matsya Nyaya. Over here, he mentions that the weak they devour, but the strong they devour the weak over here. Therefore, he had argued that there needs to be a very strong state, there needs to be a very strong governance. Otherwise, what is going to happen that all this is going to lead to anarchy. Anarchy means that abrupt rule of the common public. Is it clear? Now, he has given his famous Saptang theory, or he has mentioned about the 7 limbs of the state. He says that all these 7 limbs are connected with each other. First of all, there is a Swami, or there is a ruler over here. Second over here is Amatya. Amatya is the minister. Okay, and you can also note down over here that Amatya is a bureaucrat. Right? Then third, he has mentioned about the Janpad territory population. Fourth, about the fortified capital. Fifth, he talks about the Kosh and treasury. Sixth, he talks about the Danda. And seventh, he talks about the friends, the Mitras, right? He says that your enemies, okay, if you have one enemy, right, and this enemy is also enemy of some other state, then you can be friends to that state. This is what he says, real politic. Because of his this consequentialist approach, it was possible for Chandragupta Maurya to defeat the Nandas. Okay, now apart from this, he talks about that in the empire, right, the state should be based on the concept of Yogshima, and this Yogshima is dharma and artha integration. Okay, now in terms of governance, he mentioned that the king has Raj Dharma. In his happiness of the subjects lies the happiness of the king. Apart from this, in terms of administrative ethics, this we are going to discuss in detail when I'll be discussing about the philosophy of the administrative ethics. There I'm going to tell, just as a fish is in the bowl, okay, just as there is a fish in the bowl, and you will never be able to know how much water a fish is drinking. Similarly, a bureaucrat who is present, you will never know how much corruption or corrupt practices are happening over there, how much loss of treasury to the states or public funds, or the misappropriation of public funds will be there. For this, he has mentioned some methods we are going to discuss later. Okay. What is relevance of him today in terms of good governance, in terms of administrative ethics, right? Yogashima concept, administrative ethics, how to stop the corrupt practices. That's why his emphasis is on hiring those people who are ethically more sound, or providing the value system training, right? For this, Indian government has brought Mission Karm Yogi, okay, balancing the security concerns with the civil liberties over here, the CFC in Saptang theory, anti-corruption frameworks in public administration, strategic thinking in foreign policy, a role of state in the economic regulation. The first one we have discussed over here, right? You can quote him. Second one over here, basically in terms of Gautam Buddha says that there are four Arya Satya, or four noble truth. First of all, there is suffering, there is misery in human life. There is this suffering which inherently arises from the attachment, right? Dukh Samudaya. And in the cessation, in the nirodh of this dukh, there lies elimination of the cravings. Okay? And then he said, in order to eliminate this, there is a eightfold path which leads to ending of all the sufferings, right? And this comes when there is a practical ethical guidance of Ashtangic mark over here. First, he talks about right view and right intent. Okay, then he talks about the proper ethical conduct over here, right speech, right action, and right livelihood. This is something that you have to learn, right? If a bureaucrat has a right view, if his intent is right, definitely his speech is going to be right. The actions he takes is going to be right. He is going to earn the right livelihood from there. Okay. Apart from this, he talks about mental discipline or samadhi. There is going to be a right effort, there is going to be right mindfulness, and all this is going to lead to a right concentration. Again, inherent value development in the bureaucrat. Okay. That's why, like Aristotle's golden mean, okay, Buddha talks about a middle way, which is also known as Madhyam Marg. ठीक है? He is talking that do not go to the extremes of the decision making as a bureaucrat. You have to see anything as a balanced, or you have to take a decision which is balanced. Now, second thing he talks over here is ahimsa and non-violence, right? That is, you do not harm or you do not kill. Then he talks about karuna or compassion. Compassion is when you act upon your empathy, right? When you step into someone's shoes, you analyze the situation, right? I've discussed earlier. And then you take action upon it. You just don't listen or just don't sympathize or empathize. Example over here is Mother Teresa. Okay? For all this basic ethical guidelines, he has laid down five methods over here. First of all, abstain from taking life. That means do not kill. Follow the path of ahimsa. Abstain from taking what is not given. Do not steal. Abstain from sexual misconduct. Right? Abstain from false speech. Abstain from intoxicants. that cloud the mind. Okay, contemporary relevance, let's see over here. Mindfulness based approaches, somebody who is in the administration and he is mindful of the decision making over here. Is it clear? All this leads to mental health and upliftment in education. Apart from this, you can use his approach in environmental ethics, where you have to balance development and sustainability. Apart from this, he talks about conflict resolution and the peace studies. He talks about emotional intelligence in leadership. Okay. He talks about ethical consumption and right livelihood in business. He talks about prison reform and rehabilitation over punishment, right? Reformation, this we have seen in Kiran Bedi's Tihar jail reforms. Now, Mahavira. Uh, this time they asked the question, I think, in your mains, UPSC mains 2025, they have asked this, right? So, the core ethical principle of Jainism is based on the policy of ahimsa or non-violence over here, which again means do not kill. They have talked about that there should not be any physical, verbal, or mental non-violence. Okay. Now, Jen, they talk about the theory of Anekantvad. Anekantvad means that there are multiple realities to the truth. Okay, suppose if there is a elephant, right? Okay, just understand that if there is a elephant, okay, this is an elephant, and there are six blind man, okay, and whenever these blind men they touch the elephant, right? Somebody touches his trunk and he says elephant is like this. Somebody touches his tail and he says elephant is like this. Somebody touches his ivory, this horns, and they say that tusk, elephant is like this. Somebody touches his ear flaps and they say elephant is like this. So elephant is like everything, right? The truth, the whole in totality is the elephant. So that's what Jainism says, that it is on this basis that truth and ethical implications are found. Okay? There are multiple sided of the realities. Is it clear? Now this teaches us tolerance. This teaches us diverse viewpoint. This is a rejection of dogmatism, which means that only my views are right, your views are not right. Okay? There is dialogue and reconciliation over confrontation. Now, okay, now this is another theory over here, Syadvad, okay, which he talks that any kind of judgment, it is conditional and again it is relative. So this conditionally relative thing, definitely again it leads to tolerance in the society. I may not agree with what you say, right? But I will respect the right for you of, I will respect that right which gives you that freedom to say. Is it clear? Except Indian Constitution has provided for hate speech. There are some there are some restrictions which are provided in Article 19, right? Okay. So this is what they have asked in your UPSC mains 2025, right? Here in this five great wars or Mahavrat, it talks about ahimsa or the non-violence. It talks about satya or the truthfulness. It talks about aste, which is non-stealing. It talks about brahmacharya, which is celibacy. It talks about aparigraha, which is non-possessiveness. Is it clear? That you don't have this attachment to the material positions. Is it clear? Okay. So what are the implications over here of this Jain metaphysics? It says that it has the ethical implications lies in the environmental ethics over here, because it talks that all the jeev, they possess consciousness, right? Yes, it emphasizes over here again on the karma theory. Okay, this provides a grounding for ethics over here. The moral actions, they are connected with the one's spiritual condition over here. Relevance we see in environmental ethics, we see in protection of biodiversity, in animal rights, promotion of vegetarianism, conflict resolution through dialogue, religious tolerance, sustainable consumption, right? Responsible behavioral practices, so corporate ethics. Yes. What about the climate change dialogue? It talks that all the lives are interconnected, right? So there should be a sustainable development where you not only provide for your current needs but also for the needs of the future generation. Is it clear? Now, another one over here is Swami Vivekanand. Swami Vivekanand, he has basically talked about the karma marg, right? There is Gyan marg, there is Bhakti marg, and there is another last one, karma marg over here. Basically, his theory deals with the practical Vedantic theory that every human being must translate the service to humanity. Service to mankind is service to God. This is what he has mentioned, right? Work before worship. Work before worship, right? He has discussed the doctrine of divinity of the soul over here. He says that all the human beings, they deserve respect and dignity. There is class and caste distinctions over here, right? So ultimately all these things are meaningless. Service to humanity or mankind is service to God, and human potential is unlimited. What he has talked about, that service is basically a method or a spiritual practice, right? Yes, all this has led to the purity of thoughts, right? All this has led to basically patience and perseverance, right? And sustained efforts towards the goal. Okay, another thing we have seen over here, that there has been a synthesis of Eastern and Western values in Vivekananda's theory. Here we had seen that the Eastern spirituality, it has been mixed with the Western scientific temper over here. The Indian pragmatism, Indian idealism has been mixed with the Western pragmatism. This you have seen, you can connect with the example of vocal for local, right? We are promoting our own indigenized things, right? But we are also adapting the Western methods. We are promoting it via AI, via YouTube, right? So this is how he has talked about contemplative wisdom along with active engagement. Is it clear? Apart from this, he is also talking about that there is a universal spiritual core which is common to all the faiths. Okay. Critique of caste system. Yes, this you can read in the notes. He has worked for women empowerment and upliftment. He has worked for education as being a national regeneration. Okay. So contemporary relevance over here is, it has led to youth empowerment. It has led to character education. It has led to social service, volunteerism. It has led to interfaith dialogue. It has led to religious harmony over here, national development through human resource development, gender equality and women's empowerment. Okay. Overall confidence, right, in your decision making. Okay. Now, Mahatma Gandhi, he has always talked that the means, they have to be equally pure as the ends over here. Okay? It is because of his this whole conception or his ideology of means purer as the end, he has led via tools of satyagraha and ahimsa, he has led this Indian freedom struggle movement. And this has also, he has also influenced the civil rights movements worldwide. One was by Martin Luther King Jr. and one is by the Nelson Mandela. Okay. What are the core ethical principle of Mahatma Gandhi over here? First is the Satya or the truth, right? He talked that truth is equivalent to God. Truth is the ultimate reality and the ethical touchstone. He talked about personal honesty and transparency, commitment to facts, willingness to change, right? Second thing he talked about is ahimsa or non-violence beyond physical non-harm, right? He has mentioned that there should be positive love and goodwill even towards the adversaries. He has talked about refusal to participate in any kind of unjust systems. Right? He taught that the relationship between Satya and the relationship between ahimsa over here is ultimately crucial. The third thing over here is satyagraha. Okay, in satyagraha he talks about that there is a truth force in all his national movements. We have seen this, right? That he has practiced not in, if you see the salt march, it was a satyagraha movement, right? If you pick up the non-cooperation movement, again Satyagraha movement. You see what happened in Kheda, right? You see what happened in other two places, Ahmedabad mill strike, in Champaran. Is it clear? So basically, he has given, there are 11 woes of Mahatma Gandhi. One is truth, okay, adherence in thought, speech and action. This truth is leading to integrity. Ahimsa, that is non-harm in deed, word and thought. There is brahmacharya. There is aste. Aste means not stealing. Okay, not taking what belongs to others. There is aparigraha, which is non-possessiveness, limiting the possessions to the necessities. There is shram, sharir shram, that is the physical labor. There is a dignity of manual work. There is a swad, control of palate, which is simple and disciplined eating. There is abhay or fearlessness, freedom from the fear. There is sarva dharma sambhava. Now, this is basically leading to the conception of secularism in India. There is religious tolerance, respect, equal respect for all the religions over here. He's talking about Swadeshi, which is use of local products. He talks about Sparsh Bhavna, removal of untouchability or social inequality which is prevailing in the society, that should be removed and bringing in social equality. Okay? In terms of corporate ethics, we are going to see over here, he gives this conception of trusteeship model of Mahatma Gandhi. Here he talks that the wealthies, they are basically the trustees, right? They are not the owner of their wealth, because he talked that the surplus wealth, it had been for the benefit of all. Check. Apart from this, in its again economics, his economic ethics, he talked about Swadeshi. Swadeshi means self-reliance. Self-reliance, that is economic self-reliance, indigenous production, right? employment generation, environmental sustainability, there is going to be community solidarity. Okay, he has talked about Sarvodaya, or the welfare of all. Now, this is that the development, it must benefit everyone. Okay. Apart from this, especially the poorest over here. Here he talks of Antyodaya, which is upliftment of the last person. This is what I had been always talking as a bureaucrat. Your decision making should be such that even the person who is standing in the last line, he should be benefited by it. The disbursal of the welfare schemes when you will be a district collector, it should be such that it is making a larger impact. Okay. Now, in the political ethics, he mentions that the Swaraj or self-rule, it has two dimensions. One, he talked about political independence from the colonial rule. Second, he has talked about self-discipline and moral autonomy. And true Swaraj is requiring both this internal and external dimensions. Is it clear? Yes. The means, they have to be purer as the ends, right? That is why when Chora Chori incident happened in 1921, he was the one who had basically taken back the non-cooperation movement when the common public, they went inside and they had killed the five men in the police station, five police officials inside in the, they burned them alive over there in the Gorakhpur area, okay, Uttar Pradesh. So basically he was the one who is focusing on a duty based ethics of Immanuel Kant, right? He challenges this consequentialist approach. Okay, we have already discussed it in our first class. What is the relevance? We see non-violent conflict resolution. We see in the peace studies. We see environmental sustainability and simple living. We see over here in corporate social responsibility. We see in grassroots democracy and decentralization. We see alternative development models here. We see social movement and civil disobedience in communal harmony, religious tolerance, anti-corruption movements. We see in consumer ethics and conscious consumption. Is it clear? Now, Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo has given his theory of integral yoga. Okay. In his integral yoga, just a minute, that's too much of light. Okay, this is okay. Okay. He has tried to mention that there is a synthesis by which you have to work not only for the salvation of yourself but of all the people around you. Okay, basically he was initially a radical freedom fighter, right? But later part of life he had focused on complete integral yoga and he had established a ashram in Puducherry. Okay, his works included The Life Divine, Synthesis of Yoga, and Savitri. What are the core philosophical frameworks over here? Right? He had rejected both world negating spirituality. This is, I think, not very important, and spirit denying materialism. No. Let's see what is important for your exam perspective. He was the one who has focused on education and action. One thing you can write down, he has talked about universal salvation of all sentient beings, not only yourself. Okay, he has talked about this evolutionary spirituality where a human reaches a higher status, and after reaching that, he basically tries to raise all the people to that level. Okay, for this, he has given the triple transformation method. Again, this is a part of philosophy, not for our this part. Okay, so this we can see over here. Apart from this, in his ethical theories, he says that he has been a critique of the conventional morality. He says that rules necessary for social functioning, but they must be limited. He mentions that a higher moral aspirations, okay, that transcend these social conventions. He talks about that action flowing from the spiritual realization is beyond the rules. Okay. He warned against this both moral rigidity and moral relativism. Again, talking about a balanced life over here. Okay. Again, he was the one who has emphasized on spiritual nationalism. He says that India's destiny is to lead humanity's spiritual evolution, but this requires material and social development along with the spiritual growth. He had talked about human unity over here. Okay, the goal of human evolution is eventual unity over here. It is not about uniformity, but it is about preserving the diversity. Okay. So basically, he was during the time of Indian freedom struggle movement, right? And he has transcended the narrow nationalism, and he had tried to preserve the cultural diversity over here. So if the question comes over here, you can emphasize that his theories have focused on humanism, okay, international cooperation, right, based on universal salvation for all, right, contemporary relevance over here in terms of education and development. We have seen that how his evolutionary perspectives talks about consciousness and ethics, balancing individual spiritual growth with society responsibility, how he talks of synthesis of East and West. He talks that this ethical, environmental ethics is grounded in the spiritual worldview, right? Okay, this is important, and write down this word over here in Ambedkar, which is constitutional. The key word over here is constitutional morality. What is the meaning of this word? You have to write it down multiple times in your ethics paper wherever required. This keyword over here means that the morality in the Indian society is based on the laws of the constitution, which are again liberty, equality, and fraternity. All this basically leads to a just society or prevalence of justice in the society. Is it clear? Right? Basically, he was the one. Because of him, affirmative actions have been provided in educational and public employment places, right? He had emphasized on liberty, equality, and fraternity. Liberty over here is not mere absence of restraint, but a positive freedom to develop one's own potential. There is equality of opportunity, right? You have these opportunities and you choose. Equality, it is not just legal equality, but a substantive equality which is addressing the historical injustices. And this is basically your affirmative actions. Fraternity, again, it is a sense of brotherhood. This is essential for democracy. Without it, liberty and equality, they remain formal. He has emphasized that these three, they must go together. Yes, social justice is foundation for all, right? You can draw this diagram. Equality, liberty, and fraternity. And this is something which is your justice. Okay? He has been critique of caste as a moral system, right? He was the one who basically wanted annihilation of caste. right? He was the one who has wanted the annihilation of caste. He prevents the he mentions that this destroys human dignity, it prevents development of social solidarity, it creates artificial barriers to merit. ठीक है, ये रहा annihilation of the caste. He had promoted that if you have to make sure or ensure that there is annihilation of the caste, you must make sure that there is intercaste marriages, there is rejection of religious sanction for the caste, and there is complete social revolution over here. Again, he has focused on social morality, which this I have completely discussed with you. A role of the state. In terms of state, he says that the state has to be the active agent for the social reform, right? It is state's duty to protect the vulnerable. We have rights, Forest Rights Act, PVTG, rights. Okay, we provide sexual harassment at the workplace, we provide POSCO Act, right? All these are present for the vulnerable section. We provide to Divyangs in Sugam Bharat. There are certain reservations and there are certain physical accessibility areas which are being made, right? He talks about providing affirmative actions. He talks about that reform of the society should be through education and legislation. Is it clear? Now, yes, he has been a critique of Hinduism because of its caste hierarchy, which has been very much embedded in it. And for this, he had embraced Buddhism because he believed that it is more rationalistic in its approach. It has an egalitarian treatment for all. It is compassionate and compatible with the modern democratic values. Okay? Contemporary relevance, fundamental rights, constitutional interpretation, yes. Affirmative action debates, this is very important. I think on YouTube, in our class, there is a social justice of John Rawls. Please go and watch that over there. This is based also on the differential equality of John Rawls. Democratic governance, he talked about secularism, state religion relations, he talked about human dignity, anti discrimination, education as instrument of change, Dalit rights, and social upliftment over here. Okay. In the Western moral thinkers, the first one over here is Socrates, and Socrates says that unexamined life is not worth living. He talks that there is or there should be a critical dialectical method. Okay, there should be a critical dialectical method. That's why he even drank the poison. He talks about that the human categories of mind, they should use logic and rationality rather than having psychophancy or rhetoric, what is going on in the society. Okay? He talks of continuous self-examination, critical questioning of the assumption. As a bureaucrat, you need that. Pursuit of knowledge about virtue, intellectual honesty about one's ignorance. Okay? He held that right knowledge is a virtue. To know goods is to do good, right? He says that evil actions, they result from ignorance and not malice. No one does a wrong willingly, and moral education is crucial for the development of the child from starting. Okay. Socratic method over here, basically it starts with cross examination, right? Beginning with interlocutor's confident claim. First step is this. Second, asking for the definition and the reason why. There is a question. Why? Exposing the contradictions and inadequacies. This you are going to use in the ethical dilemmas or case study scenario. Leading towards recognition of ignorance, joint search for better understanding. This is known as a dialectic method where you are debating the pros and cons These are his ethical foundations for discovering the truth. Is it clear? Okay. What he talks about, that courage, we'll see in Plato also, temperance, justice, and wisdom. These are the various virtues which are required for logical human soul. Okay. Okay. Relevance over here. There should be critical thinking in education, innovativeness in your decision making in your area. There should be questioning of the authority and conventional wisdom. There should be ethics of dialogue and respectful disagreement. There should be moral courage and integrity. There should be civil disobedience debate, which we had seen during the time of Gandhi and Martin Luther King. Okay, there should be importance of self leadership in self knowledge in leadership. Is it clear? Now, Plato was basically the teacher. Socrates was the teacher, and Plato is his student, and further, Aristotle is the student of Plato. Okay, it goes like this. So, Plato basically he talks about his theory of form. Again, this is part of philosophy, not very important over here. Just you have to understand he is the one who will be talking about idealism in ethics, right? The idea of good is the highest form, that is the achievable form. The good is inherently good in itself. This is what he talks about. Okay, he says that he gives a theory of cave theory. In a cave, suppose a person is put in shackles and he is sitting, and in behind his back a fire is lighting inside the cave, and on the cave wall he can see the shadow of the fire, he can see the shadow of the sun, right? Humans don't have to be narrow minded like that. They have to get out of that cave and they have to go and see the outside world. Anything will have multiple possibilities, so you can't say this is absolutely right or this is absolutely wrong. Is it clear? So basically we have seen that moral truths, they are objective and eternal. Courageous, to be courageous, it is objective, right? And it is eternal, it is universal. Okay, ethical knowledge is possible. The good life, it involves understanding the form of good. Moral relativism is false. For example, if I say that truth is a virtue, it is morally upright, there is no relativism in truth. It is absolutely at all times right. Universality, right? Now he talks about that there should be rationality or there should be reason in truth seeking a part. There should be emotional honor seeking a part in the spirit. There should be desire or appetite seeking a part over here. Okay. He has given that there should be again wisdom as a bureaucrat. There should be courage as a bureaucrat. There should be temperance as a bureaucrat. There should be in all, if these three things are in harmony, if there is wisdom in you, if there is courage in you, if there is temperance in you, all this is going to lead to justice in the individual. Is it clear? Right, this is the allegory of cave example where I had been telling you. Now, one important thing, okay, just extra information I want to give you, that Plato has been critical of the democracy. Why? Because his emphasis, he believed that democracy is a mass rule, because almost 95% of the population was illiterate at that point of time, right? In Rome, only 5% were educated. So what are you asking to? You're asking from these uneducated people to vote. How is that going to lead to a potential leader? He is giving his theory of philosopher king. He mentions that instead of democracy, the focus has to be on meritocracy. Again, Plato's theory is basically based on the teleology. If you see, teleology, which is again the end goal perspective of any. Is it clear? Objective moral standards versus moral relativism, character education and virtue development, leadership and expertise in governance, psychological integration and mental health, education policy and curriculum design. Where he debates that about this whole democracy thing. Is it clear? Now, let's see what Aristotle has said. The ethical works of Aristotle, this is important for your exam. It lies in his teleological function. I've already discussed in the dimensions of ethics that teleology means that there is an end purpose. Okay, if I have to distribute a flute to a set or class of people, I am going to ensure that the best flute player over here gets the opportunity to play the flute, right? I will not make efforts, or I will not look that maybe the potential may be in somebody to play the flute, but maybe it's not possible for him to play the flute because he never got that opportunity, because he never got the money to buy the instrument, or maybe because there was no teacher present over there, right? So Aristotle is basically talking that there is eudaimonia. He says that there is eudaimonia, which is again flourishing happiness in human life. The end goal has to be happy. The end goal has to be that a best music should be produced by the flute player so that there is happiness produced, right? So for this, he will always see the end goal perspective. Is it clear? Apart from this, Aristotle, he has given his doctrine of mean. He says that over here that there should be a balance, okay? There should be no foolhardiness. There should be no cowardice. Instead, there should be courage. There should be a golden mean where you avoid the excess, where you avoid the deficiency. Instead, you have right amount at the right time towards the right person. Okay, he talks about courage as a mean between recklessness, excess, and cowardice, which is deficiency. Generosity as a mean between prodigality, that is excess, and stingingness, that is deficiency. Okay? Now, he talks about certain intellectual virtues over here, right? I think again that is not you just see this. He talks about instead of intellectual virtues. For an exam, what is important? He talks that the habits are generated through the moral virtues over here, right? These are courage, temperance, justice, generosity, magnanimity, right? Truthfulness, patience, wittiness, friendliness, modesty, right, righteousness. Okay? Apart from this, his contemporary relevance is seen in that there is no education if you can't transform the heart of people. Merely the education of mind is not sufficient. This is what he says. Character education in school is important. He talks about professional ethics and virtue in workplace. He talks about leadership programs, debate between virtue ethics and rule based ethics, right? Community based approaches to ethics. Okay? Immunal Kant. Already I have discussed about Kant. What does Kant says? Kant says that any virtue, right? Suppose if I'm talking about good, or if I'm talking about being honest, he says that the good is inherently good in itself, right? It is not something you're doing externally. This is a inherent virtue, right? He says that to be honest, again, honesty is itself a virtue in itself, and it is your ड्यूटी. कांत देखते ही एग्जाम में सबसे पहले यह वर्ड क्लिक होना चाहिए इम्यूनल कांत में, दैट यू आर डूइंग योर ड्यूटी फॉर ड्यूटीज sake. The duty is for the duty's sake. You are, there is, now this duty is for duty's sake because there is a categorical imperative. And what is this categorical imperative? Something which is beyond the if and buts. Unlike the hypothetical imperative, this categorical imperative, first of all, he talks that it is based on the concept of universality, or it is a universal concept over here. You're acting from the duty perspective. You're acting in accordance with the duty. Right? If you are not acting in accordance, then it is acting wrongfully. He has given a categorical imperative over here, and he says that the supreme principle of morality over here is unconditional command, which is binding all the rational beings over here. He says that act only according to that maxim by which you can at the same time and will that it should become a universal law. This means that if I say you, please do not lie and speak the truth only. Now, this is the kind of behavior you will be expecting from the other person also, right? Something which is universally good. So you also act according to that maxim. This is what he's trying to say. Okay. Lying, see over here it's mentioned that lying, it completely fails this test if everyone is lying over there, right? It is going to set a bad precedent in the society. Okay? Okay. See, it is a hypothetical imperative. If you do this, I will do that, which is based on desire, right? Categorical is something which is away from any kind of personal inclination. There is a dignity in the decision making. Okay. Practical application, definitely you can see over here human rights foundations. In most of your ethical case studies, this will be very important, where you will be discussing about human dignity and autonomy, right? In the applied form of ethics, should you be treating the animals or the patients as end in themselves in medical ethics business? In terms of business ethics, respect for the person, not merely for the profit seeking, right? In terms of international relations, right? There's a duty, okay? There's a duty in international relation based on the conception of idealism or Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. AI ethics, treating the rational agents appropriately over here. Okay? Okay. Another one over here is John Stuart Mill. Now he has given a harms principle. This we are going to discuss. But before that, again, he is the one who is a consequentialist or utilitarianist, he is focusing on the consequence or the end purpose over here. ठीक है, exponent of utilitarianism. What is the utility of the act done? What is the end purpose of the act? What is the consequence? What is the utility of that act? Suppose I have to lie, okay? I have to lie so that I can prevent the image of my brother in front of my mother in terms of very little thing, that maybe he is not able to get that salary for that month, right? So that the family is not, my long term objective is to prevent the dignity of my brother, to prevent that my family does not get tense, right? That harm which I'm taking over here, what is the utility of that? This is what he talks. Now, this theory bases over here that there should be maximum welfare, there should be maximum good of the people, right? There should be minimizing the pain of the people over here. For example, National Food Security Act. India is getting a lot of comments from WTO regarding this, the kind of subsidy the government is giving, National Food Security Act. But again, why government is taking that step? Because for the welfare of the larger public, it has to take such decisions. Okay. Bentham, this is about John Stuart Mill. He talks that right action maximizes the total happiness for all the affected parties. What happened during the time of COVID pandemic? Government had mentioned that usage of the vaccine is now mandatory if you are coming in public spaces, right, to prevent or to contain the spread of that virus, right? But some were mentioning that it is against right to life, it is against right to dignity, right? So basically, but government had to impose that action or do the right action because it was impacting the maximum life over there. Okay? Now, again, जॉन स्टुअर्ट मिल, ठीक है, ठीक है. This is an utilitarian perspective that I have discussed in my first class. Okay, this is what I was talking about. In his book on liberty, he has discussed about the harms principle. He says that there are self-harming actions, there are other harming actions, right? So in terms of this, he protects personal liberty from the state and social interference. He allows experiments in living. He limits the paternalism of state. He distinguishes this with self-regarding and other regarding actions. In terms of self-regarding actions, you have this complete liberty. But when you are talking about the other regarding action, right, then you have to be little careful, because you can't go and abuse someone, you can't go and lynch someone. This is what have been happening over here. He has totally rejected these other regarding actions, and in today's time we are seeing this in context of mob lynching, we are seeing this in context of cow lynching, we are seeing this in context of cow vigilantism, we are seeing this in terms of casteism, right? He has said that these are not allowed. Okay, okay, I think that is enough. Let's take the another thinker over here, John Rawls. Okay, John Rawls. Now John Rawls, basically he has given a theory of social justice. I have earlier also discussed that he says that there should be, okay, he says that there should be prevalence of uh, equality in the society. But this equality should be based on the concept of differential equality. Can you ask a pregnant lady, a child, okay, a old man, a disabled man, a marathon runner, can you judge that person running on the same platform? Never. The starting line will be different for everyone, right? Now, this is equality, but a differential form of equality. Now, this in India, we have seen in terms of affirmative action or the reservation system, which basically provides for uh, upliftment of the marginalized sections of the society because of the social and historical justices which had been done with them. Okay, so for this, he says that as a bureaucrat, you need to have that veil, you need to put up that veil of ignorance, okay, and in this veil of ignorance, you keep your predispositions behind and then you take the decision making over here. Is it clear? Okay, the first principle over here is absolutely, the one over here is the liberty principle. Okay, and the second one over here is your differential equality or the difference principle over here, which leads to fair equality of opportunities. Is it clear? Now, let's see where is its contemporary relevance. We have already discussed affirmative actions, debate about income inequality, healthcare policy, global justice, international relation, constitutional design, balancing liberty and equality, deliberative democracy. Okay. Acha, one last thing which I would like to discuss over here, we have already discussed in Aristotle's contemporary hires, we'll see. In Aristotle, we had already seen development of teleology, and this teleology has been based on the end purpose over here. What will be the end goal or the end purpose over here? So now today we are going to see on basis of Aristotle majorly Amartya Sen's capabilities approach, right? So over here the first one, Alasdair MacIntyre, he argued that modern and moral philosophy, it is in disarray because it has lost the teleological framework that gave virtue its true meaning, right? Without a shared conception of human purpose, this moral discourse, it becomes merely a term or merely expressive word. There should be a common conception regarding मान लीजिए sustainability and all, right? Second thing, which is very important for our exam perspective, is the capabilities approach, right? He says that Amartya Sen over here, he has developed this capabilities approach where he's talking that the human capability, there should be human capabilities leading to just and equitable society. First, there should be standard of life, there should be healthy body, bodily integrity, there should be senses, imagination, thought, practical reason, appellations, all these things are there, right? But if we provide a person, if he has such things, then he has a capability. Amartya Sen basically says that he gives an example of hunger over here. He says that. Now imagine that there are two people. One is hungry in Somalia, right? Because there is no food. And one is actually over here in some Delhi protest. He's sitting and he is on the hunger strike. Now see over here, both the people are hungry. Okay. This person, he actually has the capability to buy food. But this person in Somalia, Africa, some part, hypothetically, he does not have that money. He is not capable enough he does not has even the actual position to reach the potentiality. So how is it possible that there can be a just equitable society? So what Amartya Sen says that there should be bare minimum equality of opportunities that a state should provide. Some basic amenities should be provided so that the individual can actually attain his actuality. Is it clear? Contemporary relevance we had seen in human development indices, we had seen in international developmental ethics, we had seen in education policy, professional ethics in medicine, law and business, community and tradition in moral life. We have seen that in ethical emotional decision making, this is also. Now, very quickly, let's take a comparison of the ethical theories. My class 1 dimension of ethics and this. Okay. The basically these ethical framework, all these ethical frameworks are the normative frameworks over here. Okay. Deontology is your duty based ethics. Okay. Consequentialism, it is based on the consequence of the act over here, versus virtue based ethics, it is based on the virtues. Tick. See over here. The deontology, it focuses on duty, rules, and intentions. Consequentialism, outcome and the consequences, not considering what is coming in middle. Virtue, again, it depends on the character and the value, virtue development. This follows the moral rule that lying is wrong. That means the means have to be purer as the ends. This, even if you have to lie for a bigger purpose, do that. Okay? This virtue ethics. Okay? It talks about what a virtuous person would do at that point of time. Moral worth over here is that you act for duty's sake with your categorical imperative as a bureaucrat. Right? Here you are working to produce or maximize the efficiency in the administration. Here you are expressing the virtuous character. Now the question asked over here is, what is my duty? Okay, here what produces the most good out of the ethical action which is taken? What kind of person should I be? That is your virtuous ethical part over here. Okay. Again, Indian ethics and Western ethics also I have compared over here. This is for you guys to study. For the quick revision, I have put up Kautilya, pragmatic ethical governance, administrative ethical governance, Yogeshima, Buddha, ending the suffering through the right living. Okay? Mahavira, non-violence and many-sidedness, Anikantvad to reality, multiple ethical relativism it talks about. Vedanta, practical Vedanta and service of Vivekanand, truth and non-violence of Mahatma Gandhi, integral evolution of consciousness Aurobindo, social justice and constitutional morality of Ambedkar. If I'm talking about Socrates, he's talking about knowledge and critical questioning. Plato, he talks about good as the highest form. Aristotle, he talks about eudaimonia or flourishing happiness. Okay? And Kant over here is talking about duty-based ethical approach. John Stuart Mill, he talks about greatest happiness for greatest number of people. John Rawls, he's talking about justice as fairness or social equality. Okay? Some important quotations are there. This you can note down. Okay, I will share the PDFs. And from these thinkers only, multiple times they have asked the question, what you have to do in your PDF. Please again go and see the core ethical principles and then try to connect it with the contemporary issues. What is happening in this digital age? What is the impact on environmental ethics? What is the impact on this media ethics? What is the impact? Applied part they're asking, right? What is its impact in democracy in today's time, right? So all these you have to apply and write over there, and I hope you all are writing the answers. Okay? And I will make sure, please connect with me for getting your copies evaluated and the feedbacks. Thank you.